Hello, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you're on. I would love to say hello to you. I hope everyone's having a great week. Um, we talked last week just simply about how things happen, and how things don't always turn out the way we want them to, but some things we need to just demand to happen in our lives, demand from other people. Some things we even need to demand from ourselves. So I hope you guys got something from that. This week, we want to talk about I had to go through it. A lot of us have gone through some stuff that we don't even want to speak about. But one thing I'm learning is that the more I speak about what I've gone through, the stronger I become. The more power I feel when I share my experiences with other people. And that's why it's so important, you guys, not to keep all of this experience to yourself. Don't be ashamed of what you've gone through. That was your journey. That was something you had to go through. So don't be ashamed of what you've gone through, because it had a purpose. Nothing that we do is for nothing. God doesn't let us just go through things and just idly stand by and just let us do that for no reason. He has a purpose for everything that He allows to happen in our lives. So don't be afraid to share, even the bad stuff. I've made some horrible decisions in my life, and I look back sometimes and I say, you know what? Nobody can make me feel about that, because I learned something. You can't make me feel bad about it, because I learned something from it and I got better because of it. Therefore, there's no shame, there's no condemnation, in what you've gone through. As long as you learn from it, as long as you grow through it, that's the main thing. So don't be ashamed of it. It is what it is. It happened. Nothing you can do about it. It's just what it is. It took all of that to make you who you are today anyway. So you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time, because I don't want to hold you guys too long. As I said a minute ago, our topic is I had to go through it. And when I talk about go through it, I'm talking about going through the storms that we all have to go through in life, our individual journeys, those hard places that we don't want to go through, those hard places we have to cry through, those hard places we have to struggle through. Those are the places I'm talking about, the places that you usually have to go through by yourself. It's one thing to know that somebody's with you and that you have support, but a lot of us have had to go through some things seemingly by ourselves, but God. God was the only one that was there for us. And sometimes God sets it up that way that nobody else can be there for you, because He doesn't want you to give anybody else the glory for what you've done and for how you made it through. So sometimes that's a setup by God that people scatter when trouble comes. So don't always think it's on them. Sometimes God has set that up because He wants to get the best out of you. And you guys, life is built up, on a series of events. Some things, like I said last week, you can control. Some things you can't, and some things just happen. And then some things we allow to happen. And some things we actually make happen. But either way, whichever scenario it is, we still got to just go through it. No one is exempt from storms. No one is exempt from trouble. We all have to figure it out, and we all have to go through it. Money doesn't keep trouble away from you. Money doesn't make your life perfect. Being in a certain position around certain people doesn't stop trouble from coming in your life. We all have to walk our own walk, and we have to move our own mountains. And then sometimes we just have to learn how to climb over those things, because sometimes God won't move them. He wants you to learn how to climb. He wants you to get stronger. He wants you to strategize. He wants you to depend on Him. And the best way out of a storm is just to go through it, you guys. And I know there are some people I know personally that are going through the storm of a lifetime. And they have no idea why this happened to them. They have no idea, how long it's going to last. They have no idea what it is they're supposed to learn from what they're going through. And my only advice to you is just to hold on. Hold on. Get your relationship closer with God. Talk to God, because He's the only one that's got the answer. People can speculate about things. Doctors can speculate about things. Your friends can speculate. But no one really knows the answers but God. So I want to encourage those that are going through, those that feel like giving up. And I've been there. I know what it's like to go through something for such a long time that you just say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm done with all of this. Don't give up, because that's where the enemy wants you, at that point where you wave the white flag and give up. Don't give up, because God is on your side. Sometimes you don't know what He's doing, but just know that God is working even when you can't see it, even when you can't trace what He's doing. Just know that God is on your side, and He's going to send you the help that you need. But you've got to hold on, and you've got to keep going. Keep going. And there's 3 parts to a storm. The first part is the beginning. The beginning is when things are starting to shift. You're starting to feel like something is about to happen. Nothing feels right. You get this uneasy feeling. That's when you know something is about to happen. And for those of us that are have asked God to give us some discernment, we can feel those things even faster, than someone that doesn't have the spirit of discernment. But when you have that spirit of discernment, you can feel things sometimes weeks and months before they happen, and you can start preparing yourself. You can start praying. You can start checking on people, trying to see what you can do to kind of make this not as bad as it could be. But one thing about it, storms are like the storms in the natural. You get warning signs. You get warning signs. A storm is brewing when communication gets bad. When everybody's attitude is bad, then something is about to happen. Something is brewing. Something is changing in the atmosphere. There's other examples of warning signs. You can't sleep good. You're restless. You're anxious. Having trouble concentrating, and things that usually come easy to you seem to be a little bit harder. Those are those warnings that something is brewing. Something is happening in the atmosphere. Something is about to change. And that's that beginning of the storm. And it's up to you to focus your energy on getting your mind on God. Focus your energy on making sure you have a support system in place in case you need something, and making sure that you have effective communication with everybody so that things don't get out of hand. The second part of a storm is called the eye of the storm. Now, the eye of the storm is right smack dab in the middle. That's when all hell is breaking loose. That's the eye of the storm. That's where that turmoil, that's where that pain, that's where that hurt is. That's where that struggle is. That's the eye of the storm. And that's the part of the storm that most of us don't want to deal with. But as I said before, you got to go through it. There is no way to skip from one part to the other. You're going to start with your beginning, then you're going to hit that eye of the storm. And this is that time when all of those things that you normally rely on, they don't seem to work for you. You don't seem to be able to rely on those crutches. A lot of times you can't find your friends when you need them. Family is not supportive when you need them. And that's when you have to understand where your help truly comes from. And your help comes from the Lord. And He wants you to call on Him when you're in the middle of the storm, when you're in the eye of that storm, when you can't see anything good happening around you. That's the perfect time to call on God. Sometimes God just needs you to be quiet. Sometimes God wants you to rest. Sometimes God just needs you to go to sleep and stop worrying and let Him fight for you. Because a lot of times the storms that we go through, we make them harder because we try to fight them in our own flesh. We try to do things that we normally know how to do. And a lot of times the battle is not even about you. Sometimes it's about what God is going to do in your life. And sometimes the enemy just wants to stop you from getting to a certain point so that you don't reach your full potential. So that's why you have to trust God, because he knows what the battle is about. And stay calm and just know that whatever's going on with you, whatever situation you're in, you are not by yourself. God is always with you, even when no one else is there. And a lot of times you have to make up your mind. Either you're going to sink or you're going to swim. Either you're going to give up or you're going to give it all you got. You don't win every battle. And some storms at the end, they don't turn out the way that you want them to turn out. But you can say that I gave it all I had. Hey, Rashida, I gave it all I had. I kept the faith. I trusted God. I'm trusting God with the outcome. Because a lot of times what we think is best for us, it's not always what's best for us. A lot of times, we think that we're wise within ourselves, and we have no idea what's ahead of us. We have no idea what's coming down the line. But God does. That's why we have to leave the outcome to him. But when you're in the middle of a storm, when you're going through something, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to get mad. But don't stop trusting God, and don't give up in the middle of the storm. Because one thing about it, just like it had a beginning, that storm has an end. And you have to believe God that he's going to get you from the beginning to the end. And sometimes God blesses us by removing things from us. And it doesn't seem like a blessing at the time. Hey, Juanita, it doesn't seem like a blessing at the time, especially when he's moving things that we love. Or he's taking things away from us that we're used to. Or he's moving people out of our lives that we're attached to. Sometimes we can't see that as a blessing, but sometimes that's a blessing because, those things that we get so connected to sometimes they're good for a season. Sometimes they're good for where you are right now, but they're not good for where God is trying to take you. And you have to understand, you have to be willing to let go of some things just to be able to move forward. And no, it's not easy, especially if it's been something that you've been used to, something that you're comfortable with, something that makes you feel good, something that makes you feel safe. No, you don't want to give that up. But sometimes God will take it from you and remove some things from you so that you will be open to receive something new, open to step on to that next level. Because sometimes we won't go anywhere simply because we have too many attachments. And sometimes that's what the storm is about, is to shake things up, so that he can shake you up to motivate you to do something different, and get you out of your comfort zone. And he sometimes also has to isolate you because we tend to do too much talking to our friends and stuff who have just as many problems as we do. A lot of times people won't admit that they got a hot mess at their house, but they'll listen to all of your stuff and they'll give you all this sage advice, making you think they got their stuff together. But I have yet to meet anybody that had it all together. I don't. And that's why sometimes God will remove you from people and listening to people, because sometimes you value their opinion and what they say you should do over what God is trying to tell you. You tuning him out and you're listening to them. I've been guilty of that, and I made some major mistakes listening to friends versus listening to what God was trying to tell me, because it was two totally different things. And in the end, I ended up having to go back to God anyway, because I took advice that wasn't good for me. It wasn't healthy for me. And the friend didn't mean any harm, but I should have trusted what God told me over what someone else told me. And that's a mistake I had to deal with. That's something I had to walk through. And it was painful. Oh my God, it was painful. There were times when I was like, Lord, you can just go on and take me now because I'm tired. You can take me now. I'm sick of this. I am tired. Just go on and take me to heaven right now. Because sometimes we walk into things that we're not ready for. We walk into things that we don't have the fortitude for. We don't have the wisdom for. And we definitely don't have the understanding for. We just see it, we want it, and we go for it. And then we get there and we're lost. We don't know what to do. We don't know which direction to go because you went before God, or you went, in your own way and didn't ask God to help you. or didn't allow God to help you make that decision in the first place. So sometimes he's got to isolate you from people. You know, not that you don't love them, but sometimes you don't need them in your ear. Sometimes the only thing you need is some quiet, and you need to be able to hear from God, because he's the only one that truly knows what's best for you. And don't give up just because you can't see what God is doing. God is fighting things in the spirit that you'll never understand. And a lot of times when things aren't moving where we can see it, or things doesn't seem to be getting better, and I wish somebody would have sat me down and explained this to me a long time ago, that don't give up just because you don't see the change. Just understand it's a process. And I've never had anybody sit down and explain to me that that's a process. Karen, don't give up yet. The process is working. No, you can't see God moving, but God is moving. He's working things in the spiritual realm that you don't even understand. He's doing things that you can't see. And see, when I couldn't see things changing in my eyesight or in the natural world, I was like, okay, well, this ain't working. I'm going to do something else. I'm giving up on this. And I walked away from some things that if I'd have just waited on God, things may have turned out different. He may have told me to walk away from it in the end, but still I would have waited on him, and I would have allowed God to do what he had to do and build some patience in me. Because there are times when I didn't have patience, because when my flesh was hurting, or when my emotions was hurting, my heart was hurting, when I got tired of the pain, then I wanted it to stop. And I didn't understand that was part of the process, that you have to go through that sometimes. It's not that that's going to be pleasant. God didn't promise us that life was always going to be pleasant. But sometimes you do have to endure some things to get what God wants out of you. And I didn't know how to endure. I did it for a while, for as long as I felt like I could do it. But I look back over my life now, I could have hung in there a little bit longer. I could have waited. And a lot of it was because I was young. And a lot of it is because I never got really good teaching. Some things, when you don't know any better, you don't do any better. And a lot of the mistakes that I made in my younger years was simply out of ignorance, simply because nobody taught me. Nobody sat down and taught me what it was like to be a proper young lady. I had to learn that on my own. My mother was very young when she had all of us. So she was growing up while she was raising us. So that was not the best example in the world. But no one else ever took you to the side back in the day and sat down with you and said, look, I want to mentor you. I want to show you. I see potential in you. I want to show you what it's like to be a young lady. I'm going to show you the proper way of doing things. I want to show you what things you should be doing and what you shouldn't. People just didn't take the time to do that with us. They didn't pull us to the side. They didn't sit down and say, hey, I want to spend time with you. And that's something that really needs to change. As grandparents, now that you've raised your children, now that you have done the hardest work of getting your kids grown, and now you have grandchildren, that is your job, to pull those children to the side and say, hey, I want to, especially moms, grandmoms, and those girls, get them while they're young. Get them while they're young, grandmas. Get them while they still have that respect for you. And make sure that you're living what you're telling them they need to do. Because that matters. These kids will set you straight. So, grandmothers, it's our job. I'm not a grandmother yet, but it's our job to help our children, to mentor their children. No, they're not yours, but you can play a part in how they grow up. You can play a part of the things that they learn, the culture that they learn, those foundational things that they learn. It's so important. Because I remember as a young child, my mother did not go to church, but she dropped us off at church to our grandmother. And our grandmother, she may not have been the best role model, but at least I remember being at church with her when my mother wouldn't go. So she served her purpose. She made sure we were in church, we behaved, that we listened, and that was her part of trying to help my mom, to help us to grow up and turn out to be decent human beings and have some type of relationship with God, because my mother was not one of those people at that time that she was worried about church. But she knew my grandmother was going to be there and that my grandmother would take care of us while we were there. So grandparents, it's our jobs. Grandfathers, if there's any men here, it is your job. If that dad is not taking that grandson off sometimes by himself, daddy working too hard, grandpa, it's your job. If you retired or you got some downtime, go pick up your grandson while he's young, while he'll still listen to you, and do that so that y'all will have a close relationship as he's getting older. And spend some time with him, impart some wisdom into that child. That's the least you can do to help your children try to raise these kids, because these kids are living in a world that's absolutely ridiculous right now. It's ridiculous. I'm confused, and I'm 54 years old. I am confused about a whole lot of things simply because so many things that I didn't believe in, everybody's trying to make me think that it's right, and it's not right. But society is trying to tell you everything is right. Whatever people want to do is okay, and they're forcing a lot of things on our children in school. So they need that foundation. They need that wisdom. They need that understanding, okay? And then God doesn't need our permission to disrupt things in our lives. And that's one of those things that used to really frustrate me about God, is be like, God, things is going good. Why you let that happen? I get like, I'd be mad. I ain't gonna lie. I've been mad at God. I ain't never cursed God, but I done been mad. Be like, man, why you let that happen? You knew that was going to happen. Why you didn't warn me that was going to happen? But God doesn't need our permission to disrupt our lives, because if he's disrupting it, he's got a reason. If he's disrupting it, somewhere you were out of line. You may not thought you were, but somewhere you was not making the mark. You were not where you needed to be. So God needs you to do what they call an adjustment and alignment. Let's say alignment, just like you do tires, align them to get you back to where you needed to be. And you just have to trust him. You just have to trust him and understand that whatever you're going through, he has a reason for allowing it to happen. And sometimes how long a storm lasts is a direct result of the decisions that we make. And sometimes it's even a direct result of our attitude while we're going through stuff. If we are being stubborn or we are acting a nut, acting a fool, you're going to be in that situation a whole lot longer. If you don't know how to humble yourself and say, God, I need you, I need your help, you're probably going to be in it longer. If you want to be stubborn and do things your way, walk in your own wisdom, a lot of times it's going to last a lot longer than it should. And the things that we say out of our mouth about our situation, you have to say what you want to see. Don't keep saying what's going on. Speak what you want to see happen. You have to manifest those things, because your words have power. The things that come out of your mouth have power. You will have what you say, and you will see what you believe. What you believe, what you have the faith to believe, is what you will see happen in your life. What you say out of your mouth is what's going to happen in your life. So even though you don't see anything good in that situation, speak life to it. Speak over it. Speak the exact opposite of what's going on. If you want to see it change, tell God, God, I know you're changing this situation. I know you're turning this around. I know this is not going to be my end right here. Something's going to change, because I know my life is going to get better, because you promised me my life is going to get better. Speak to that situation and let it know that it is not in control. God is in control. Whatever you're going through, it's not in control, and you have to speak to it. And it sounds crazy, but the more you speak to it, the more uplifted you'll be, the more fulfilled you'll be, the more strength you will find that you have when you start talking back and you start acting different and you start acting like where you're trying to go. And you start acting like what you believe is going to happen in your life. You have to do that. And that's called faith. That's simply faith. Seeing what's not even happening yet. That's faith. Believing what you can't see. That's faith. And it's hard. But that's what going through will do for you. Once you've gone through enough stuff And I promise you, at my age, I done gone through a lot of stuff. Once you've gone through enough stuff and made it to the other side, it builds your faith because you are reminded of what you went through the last time. Each time you go through something, you can sit back and roll back in your head when you went through something worse or something just as bad as what you're going through. And through it all, God got you through and you made it to the other side. And you have to make up your mind that you will not die in the middle of your situation. I'm not just going to fall out and give up and just say, I quit. I'm not even going to try anymore. I don't care what happens anymore. That's one of the worst things you can say is, I don't care what happens anymore. And I know I'm not the only person that's ever said, especially when I was younger, I don't care anymore. I don't even care. And I hear young people saying that now, I don't even care no more. Yes, you do. Why are you lying? Yes, you do. You do care about what happens in your life, and you're supposed to, so stop saying that. Speak what you want to see happen, and you will see what you believe. You got to believe your life is going to get better, or it won't. Or it won't. Okay? And you must recognize that whatever you're going through, whether it's your fault or it's not your fault, God is with you. He promised He'd never leave you or forsake you. He promised that if you made your bed in hell, He would be with you. No matter what you done got yourself into, you can always call on God. I always call on God because I done got myself in some sticky situation. And when I called on God, I felt His presence and He made a way for me to get out of that situation. And I made that bed for myself. And also remember that the enemy is always with you, especially when you're going through. Who is it that you hear in your head that tells you you can't make it? That ain't God's voice. Who is it that tells you you might as well give up? That's not God's voice. So whose voice do you think that is? That is His prime opportunity to start speaking to you when you start agreeing with Him. And a lot of times, that's right, Juanita, don't panic. God is in control. He won't forsake us. You're absolutely right, Miss Juanita. But yeah, that's His voice talking to you. You think it's your voice, but it's not. Because you know better. You know better. And so understand that while God is with you, the enemy is with you too. And he's trying to override. He's trying to be louder in your life than God. And a lot of times we will fall for that. Whoever has the loudest voice. You know, God is smooth with His. He's quiet. He's got that calmness about Him. The enemy's loud. The enemy's rude. He's pushy. He pushes his way into your mind. He pushes his way into your emotions and has you all upset and has you, as Juanita said, panicking. He bombards his way. God is not like that. God is gentle. But you have to understand those voices that are telling you to give up, I quit, I'm not going to try anymore, all of that, that is not God. That is not God. So that's the enemy. So he's with you too. So understand you are going to have to recognize God's voice. Hey, Lindsay, you're going to have to recognize God's voice and stop listening to that other voice in your life when you're going through something. Cast that stuff down. When you hear that, say, you know what, devil, you got to go on. No, that's not God. I know you're not God. God is not going to tell me to act like this. God is not going to tell me, to give up. God is not going to tell me to go around saying, I don't care anymore. Y'all do whatever y'all want to do. I don't care anymore. That is not God. That is the enemy. And he's using your mouth to speak those things into existence. And you're in agreement with him. And then you wonder why things happen in your life like they do. Yeah, absolutely. So you have to stop agreeing with the enemy about your situation. Speak the opposite of whatever is going on in your situation. And tell the enemy he's got to get out of your way. Because God is coming in and God is going to fix it. But you have to believe that with everything that's in you. And you have to be patient with the process. Be patient. Okay? And then the third part of the storm is the end of the storm. That's the other side of through. That's when you done all that fighting, that crying, that stressing, and God is finally letting you see the other side. That's when you can see some light as we say, at the end of the tunnel. That's when you can start seeing things turn around a little bit. You know, sometimes it turns around fast. God will do something in an instant. Hey, Regina. Sometimes God will do things in an instant. Sometimes it'll be a process. You'll see things gradually changing. Whichever way it happens, just understand that signifies that you're at the end, that you're going through, that you've made it through the eye of the storm, that you've made it through the hardest part, and you've trusted God. So just understand, when you see that light, that's when you need to start rejoicing, because the storm is over now. You just have to let it play itself out. So learn to rejoice, even in the midst of the storm. One thing I'm learning, you guys, is I'm learning, and it's amazing, I'm learning to praise God in the eye of the storm. I don't wait till I get to the end. Y'all have to forgive me because this makes me very emotional. It took me a long time to understand. Bear with me, y'all. That your praise is your weapon. And nobody taught me that as a young lady. And a lot of times I avoided God when I was going through something. And that was exactly what the enemy wanted me to do. But had I known that I had weapons up under my belt, had I known that if I praised him in the midst of it, that he would show up. But those are the things that you have to be taught, you guys. And those are the things when I was saying, you know, grandparents, teach your grandchildren about praising God in the middle of the storm. Tell them, don't wait till it's over. You start praising him now, because it does something supernatural to you. When you start praising him, no matter what you got going on, you are lifted to another dimension. And it's a dimension where the enemy can't touch you. And I didn't recognize that, or I didn't know that for a long time in my adult life. But I thank God so much that I got that now. I get it now. And I can share that with other people. Don't wait till you've gotten to the end. Praise him right now. Because the more you praise him, the more he's going to strengthen you. The more you praise him, the more the enemy's got to get back and leave you alone. And that's how you fight your battles. That's how you fight. You fight in prayer and you fight with praise. Those two will get you through, because God is in the midst of both of those. And I'm sorry, y'all, I got so emotional, but it's just such an amazing, and it's a supernatural thing that doesn't make sense. It makes no sense that actually works, but it does. I've done it. I've tried it for myself. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't know those things at an earlier age, but you can only do what you know. You can only do what you know. So we got to teach our young people about that they don't have to commit suicide, that they don't have to walk around with low self-esteem. They don't have to walk around feeling like nobody cares about them. They've got an advocate. They've got somebody that loves them when nobody else is on their side. And children need to be taught that. And I don't know if it was just my generation. They just wanted us to be quiet and go play. But the foundational things that was going to help us along the way as adults, I know I wasn't taught. And I know that's not everybody's story, but I wasn't taught those things. And I think back now and I was like, wow, how much better my life would have been had I known some of these things. But then I have to see the flip side of the fact that everything God took me through was to make me who I am today. So maybe that was in part of God's plan, that I didn't get that kind of knowledge as a young child. Maybe I was supposed to get it now. But either way, you know, God has created so much in me now to the point where I feel like I really haven't missed a whole lot, simply because now I can share things with you guys, that I might not be able to share with anybody else because I don't have any grandchildren. My sons are grown. And, I've taught them everything that I think I knew. But I've learned some things just since they've moved out. Hey, Miss Shakita. Is that Shakita? Hey, Shakita. Some things since they moved out. So it's good to share that wisdom and give our children the tools so that they can make it when you're not around. Because you can't always be there to protect them. You can't always be there to pray for them. That's something we need to teach them ourselves so that they can make it out here because it's hard. And at the end of the storm, that's when the waters get still. When everything has been chaotic, everything starts to kind of calm down. And this is where God restores your soul. And this is the point where you can finally get your peace back. When you can stop fighting and you can relax a little bit and get your peace back. Okay? And peace doesn't mean that everything turned out the way you wanted it to. Sometimes peace just means that you trusted God. That you trusted God. Sometimes that's all it is. And you didn't have to fight anymore. You gave it over to God and you trusted Him with the outcome. And let's talk about 6 things that a storm teaches us when we have to go through things. There's 6 things that it's supposed to teach us. The first one is it's supposed to teach us what real peace is like. Peace isn't the absence of trouble or difficulty, but peace is actually the presence of God in your life. And that's what real peace is. It's not about everything going your way. It's not about not having a storm come up in your life. Peace is knowing that God is there. Peace is knowing that when nobody else is going to be there for you, you got somebody that can handle your situation. You got somebody that sticks closer than a brother. You got somebody that's going to be there and be faithful to you. The second thing a storm teaches us is what real joy is. Like I said before, when you start praising God in the midst of your trouble, He will impart you with some joy that don't even make sense. It don't even make sense. You'll be crying and people will think that you're upset, and it'll literally be tears of joy because God will hold you. He will comfort you while you're going through. And that's a joy that can't be replicated. Nobody can replicate that feeling that you have when you're in the peace of God, when you feel that joy that only comes from God. And that's that real joy. And that joy doesn't change just because your situation changes. People get joy and happiness mixed up. Happiness is being happy or having joy depending on what's going on in your life. Real joy is basically having a peace and having a happiness within you no matter what's going on. Because you know that the joy that you have didn't come from the world. It didn't come from your possessions. It didn't come from other people. It's a joy that nobody can take away from you because it was given to you by God. And going through a storm or going through trouble and coming out on the other side, it'll teach you what real strength is. People think strength is, somebody, that never seems to go through anything, somebody that seems to have all their stuff together. No, real strength is going through a storm and coming out on the other side with your head held high and understanding that nobody did that but God. That's real strength. Real strength is when you'll share your story with other people, even though it might be something that's hurtful to talk about. A person that can talk about it because they know that it's going to bless somebody else, because they know it's going to help somebody else. They have to override, how they felt about the situation. They have to override, what pain it might bring up, just talking about it. That's when you've got real strength. Real strength are those people that can keep going even when they're going through something. People that still get up in the morning when they know that they've been hurting all night. People that still get up and go to their job and try to take care of their family even when their life may not be going the way they wanted to. They might be heartbroken. Somebody may have totally disappointed them, but they still get up They still take care of those kids. They still go to their job. They still do what they need to do. And they still move through life because they know people depend on them. That's a strong person. And a strong person is somebody that's going through something but can still reach a hand out to help somebody else. They can look past what they're going through to bless somebody else. They can look past what they're going through to show somebody else some kindness. They can look past what they're going through and say, hey, what can I do for you? What do you need? What do you need? You know, that's a strong person. And a lot of times strong people like that, they don't get the support that they need because people never see you broken down. And we all break down. But some of us, God covers us so to where you don't see us when we're broken. There are times when people think, oh, Miss Karen, oh, you know, she don't have a care in the world and blah, 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 blah. Y'all just don't know some of the stuff I go through. You know, I'm going to say this and I don't even care who gets mad. You know, with me being a nurse, a lot of times people want to impose on my personal time. They don't understand how stressful it is to help people all day, to do things to help save people's lives all day, to assist a physician all day, to handle phone calls all day. And then when they know that you're off from work, now they're imposing on you too. You know, sometimes we need a break. And I know it's not just nurses, it's other professions too, but sometimes we just need a downtime just because y'all don't see us broken. Just because y'all don't understand the mental stress that we go through, don't take advantage of us. And I'm speaking for all the nurses. So whoever gets mad, they just have to be mad. I'm speaking for all of us. It's a different world for us out there now. We're working short. You know, you have to keep your head up. You have to do the best you can for your patients. And sometimes you have to leave things and go home. And I'm one of those people, I like to finish everything. So it does something to me to have to walk away from something and save it to the next day. But God is teaching me I got to do that. I have to prioritize in order to preserve myself so that I don't burn out and just leave it alone altogether. Because we have thoughts of just giving it all up too. But we have to remember God is on our side. And there are some things that we have to go through because we know it's for the greater good. We know that people need us. We know the quality of work that we do, and that if we move from that spot, it's going to hurt those patients if we leave. So understand, sometimes we just have to go through it. But people need to understand, just because you look strong doesn't mean that you are strong. Doesn't mean that you don't have times when you need support. You know, just because you don't publicly put all your stuff out there, sometimes you just need somebody to say, hey, boo, I just want to check on you because I know y'all are working hard. I know y'all are stressed. What can I do for you? Is there something I can do for you? You know, sometimes that's all you need is for somebody to care that you're a person too, not that, you know, you're somebody, a resource for them. Sometimes you just want people to understand you're human. You get tired just like everybody else. And then another thing the storm teaches us is about what the real treasure in life is. You know, a lot of times we get so caught up on material things, you guys, that we sometimes will idolize those things. Sometimes we want the biggest and the best, you know, we want the newest, you know, this, that, and the other. And sometimes we'll walk past people and won't even offer to help them trying to get to the newest thing, trying to buy the newest thing, trying to wear the newest thing. And we'll look over people that really need our help, or won't even offer to help somebody else because we're so focused on that next new thing, so that we can post pictures, look what I got, this is this, blah, 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 blah. You know, but understand the true treasure in life is knowing God. The true treasure in life is having your family. True treasure in life is having your health and your wellness. That is your treasure in life. That is your wealth. Your health is your wealth. You know, if you don't take care of your health, it don't matter how much stuff you have. I don't care what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you got, how many thousands of degrees you got. When your health is bad, none of that's going to matter to you. So you have to learn what the true treasure in life is and understand that it's not about the material things. And going through a storm will make you appreciate A whole lot of things that you took for granted. I know I've done it before, and I came out of it saying, you know what, Lord, thank you. Good morning, Lord. Good night, Lord. Sometimes you take God for granted, and you go through a hard enough storm, I bet you'll start calling his name every time you get a chance. You start acknowledging him when you get a chance, and that leads me to my next thing. That teaches you real gratitude. You go through a bad enough storm, you'll stop all that complaining about little stuff. Because I know people that complain about every little thing, blah, 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 blah. And I've seen them go through some major stuff. When they go through that major stuff, they shut up all that extra. Because sometimes God has to let you go through to let you see what hard really is. Since you already complaining, since you already negative all the time, let me give you something. What our mamas used to tell us. Let me give you something to cry about. When we used to do all that whining when we was little. So understand, going through a storm sometimes teaches you gratitude, and it teaches you to appreciate the people in your life, the people that really care about you, the people that are truly your friends. You find out who really is on your side when you go through something, especially if it's something big. They might fool you on the little stuff, but you go through something big that requires some help, some real help. Oh, people will scatter. People will leave you. People will act like they didn't see that you texted them. People will ignore your phone calls. So, honey, going through a storm will teach you to appreciate the real ones in your life. Because there's some real ones there, but sometimes we take them for granted, and God has to remind us of who really does care about us and who's just doing lip service. Okay? And the last thing, probably number 6, that the storm teaches us is faithfulness. God says that to whom much is given, much is required. And sometimes when God gives you something, God gives you a gift, or God gives you, a responsibility, like children. When God gives you children, he's faithful to help you raise those children. Sometimes when you're at your wit's end and you don't understand how things worked out as well as they did, that was God helping you. And go through a storm enough, you'll find out and you'll realize, I haven't been doing this by myself this whole time. Single moms, great is his faithfulness, but you got to call on him and you got to trust him. Great is his faithfulness. And you don't always have to have a husband. You don't always have to have a father in the house. That's ideal if you could have some help within your home and you could have that male role model in your home. But if you don't, understand that God is faithful. And when you go through a big enough storm and you see how things could have been, or you see what could have happened to you, but somehow it didn't, it will show you what real faithfulness is. And God will do that. And before we end up, taking credit for it ourselves, God will do things that you can't even take the credit for. So sometimes people, no matter what's happened, well, if I hadn't have done this, this is why this happened, blah, blah, blah. God specializes in doing stuff that you can't even take credit for, because he's faithful. And you will learn to give him the praise and the glory for the things that he's done. But those are the 6 things that the storm teaches us. And there are benefits to the storms that come in our lives. And I know that seems the opposite, of what's really going on, because they're inconvenient. You don't have time for this mess, is what we all say. We ain't got no time for this mess. But there are benefits to the storm. Number 1, it makes you rely on something more than your money and your material things. A true storm will show you that you really don't have anything, and that material things mean absolutely nothing without God. And you don't have any control. It will teach you that. And sometimes we need to be brought down off of our high horse sometimes when we think we got it going on and that we're doing everything ourselves. Sometimes God has to do that to humble us and to help us to get our mind back right so that we can have compassion for other people. That's the second benefit. Sometimes you need to get knocked down off your high horse. And then we have to be reminded that no matter how far we go in life, how high we get, one storm can change your life. One storm can knock you all the way back down to the people that you turning your nose up to. That's the benefit of a storm. It's reminding you that you're no better than anybody else. reminding you that, don't snub your nose at somebody else because that could have been you. But by the grace of God, it's not you. And it makes you grateful that it's not you. And it also gives you the compassion to say, you know what can I do to help you, instead of looking down your nose at other people. Because a lot of times, all it would take is just us missing 2 or 3 paychecks, and we'll be on the poverty line. We'll be standing there trying to get a check. We'll be standing there trying to get some food stamps. So while we're looking down at other people, just understand it's by the grace of God that we're not in their position. And I know people take advantage of that. I know people are out there getting assistance that they don't need. But for the ones that do actually need it, don't snub your nose at them, because they could be you. But it's by the grace of God that that's not you. Okay? And number 3, it reminds us to count our blessings and not our problems. When you go through something bad, like I said before, you'll stop doing all that extra talking about little bitty stuff. You'll start talking about your blessings, because you don't ever want to go back to where you just came out of. So you'll start speaking those blessings over yourself. You'll be talking about how blessed and highly favored you are. You'll be talking about how good God is. Because when you go through something bad enough, you understand that God kept you. That's the only reason you didn't go crazy. That's the only reason you didn't end up in jail. Because, honey, y'all know some people are taking you there where you wanted to do something and call somebody to bring some bail money. But it was by the grace of God that you did not do that. Number 4, the storm teaches us not to take life or people for granted. One thing I'm learning, you guys, nobody can walk in your shoes. And nobody can tell you how to be you. And people are quick to try to give you their opinion of what you should and shouldn't do and how you should handle this situation. But you know what? Nobody knows what it costs you to be who you are. Nobody knows how many nights you stayed up crying. Nobody knows, the abuse that you took. Nobody knows how you wanted to commit suicide. So we got to be careful about throwing out what we think people are to do, just speaking lightly about things. Because one thing about it, I can't walk in your shoes and you can't walk in mine. And I don't know what it costs you to be at the point in your life where you are right now. Even if you're not where you want to be, I know it costs you something to be as good as you are right now. It costs you. It costs me something to be at the point where I am right now. It costs a lot, but I'm not where I want to be, but it costs me. And nobody could pay that but me. And nobody could pay what you had to pay to get where you are. So let's be careful about judging people. Let's be careful about just throwing out advice to people, because you don't know the cost of the oil. CeCe Winans has a song that says, you don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box. That means you don't know what it cost me to get here. You don't know how many tears I had to cry to get here. You don't know how much abuse I had to take. You don't know what things I had to crawl through to get to where I am. So don't judge me where I'm at now, because you don't know the cost of the oil that it took for me to get to even right here. No, I may not be where you think I need to be, but you don't know what it cost me to get to where I am right now. And that's why it's so important that we spend more time encouraging people instead of judging people, because you don't know what they've been through. Everybody ain't going to just tell you everything about their life. You don't know what it costs them. This might be the best that they can do where they're at. And sometimes all it takes is that one person that think they got their life together to say something negative to you to make you backslide, especially when somebody's trying so hard. And then all people can see is where they're lacking. All people can see is that they're not where they should be. Well, you're not where you should be either. Nobody is. You never will be until you leave this earth. So we need to be spending more time encouraging people rather than judging people all the time. Okay? And another thing that the storm teaches us, or the benefit of the storm, it shows us how God is able and that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Because a lot of things that we've all gone through, You know, if somebody had told us we were going to go through it, we'd be like, oh, no, I ain't going to be able to do that. But the fact that God didn't tell us, he just allowed it to happen, he shows us that whatever he put into us from the beginning is enough. You are enough. What God has put off in you is enough to help you make it through. With his help, you'll make it through. And you have to be prepared. You know, everybody in your life is not going to be happy when you're not struggling. Some people like you simply because you're struggling more than they are. Because that way they can look down and feel better about themselves. So everybody won't be happy when you're not struggling. But that's okay. That's okay. And then the storm is meant to help you. It's meant to help you elevate, motivate, and dominate. Elevation. That means you got to level up. When you go through something, it ought to make you change some of the things that you're doing. Especially when it's one of them big storms that you thought you weren't going to make it through. That means when you come out, you need to change some things. You might need to change who you're around. You might need to change what you're doing. You might need to change how you're doing it. You know, so you don't have to repeat that and keep going through the same things over and over again. So the purpose of the storm is to help you elevate. Elevate to another level. Don't get caught doing the same things expecting different results. Don't keep doing the same things and going through the same stuff over and over again. Learn from your storm and elevate yourself. Do something different. Okay? Because I would have never chosen the pain that I went through. I would have never. You know, but I'm still glad I made it through. But I know I made it through, and I knew I had to go through it. I had to. You don't have a choice. When the storm comes, you have to go through it. You don't have a choice. And then that motivation keeps you going. That's what says, you know, I got to go through this, so I might as well just go on, put my big girl panties on and just deal with it. Because I got to deal with it. It's not going nowhere. I got to walk through it. I got to make my way through it to the other side. That's that motivation. That's what the storm does. And then the storm reminds you that you've done this before. This is not your first rodeo. This is not the first time something hard has happened in your life. And that motivates you to say, you know what? I've done stuff harder than this. I've been through worse than this. I know I can make it through this. I just got to get myself together, and I just got to keep moving, and I got to trust God. So that's that motivation. And like I said before, God has a purpose for everything. He has a purpose for that pain you went through, those tears, that heartache. You know, nothing is ever a waste. And it took me a long time to learn that, you know, and so much is just a lack of teaching. So much is just older people keeping things to themselves and not sharing with younger people. That's the biggest problem we have, is that we don't communicate to the younger generation and tell them they're going to be okay. You're going to make it through. Things happen. I was talking to my son. He has my youngest son, and I told him, I said, you know what, son, stuff happens. I said, but you're going to be all right. And just that was enough to lift his spirits. And I'm thinking, oh my God, something that simple. Sometimes it's just that simple, you guys. Is you telling these younger people, you know what, I hate that happened to you, but hold your head up. Just understand you're going to be all right. This too shall pass. You have to talk to them and explain to them, because we're in a society where when something doesn't work, they cancel it. You know, when everybody's trying to be something they're not on social media. Everybody's trying to have this persona. And so when these kids fail at something, these young people fail at something, they feel like their world is ended. And if they don't have a person that can speak into their life and say, baby, hold your head up, this ain't the end of the world. Sometimes you just need to hear that. And you need to drown out those voices inside of you telling you that you're a failure, that your life is never going to be right. That's our job, to be that voice, to help them understand that you're going to go through some things in this life, but you're going to be all right. And the third thing that the storm does that's meant to help you, it helps you dominate. It helps you conquer. You know, you always feel better, feel stronger when you've got through something hard. Because you look back on it and you don't quite understand how you made it through, but you understand that you're a conqueror, that obviously I was meant to beat this or I wouldn't be on the other side. Obviously, God was on my side or I wouldn't be where I am right now. And so it gives you a conqueror's spirit. It gives you that sense of, I'm not doing this by myself. I don't have to go through everything by myself. And that's a wonderful feeling, because sometimes God will even use your enemies to bless you. I've had times where my enemies thought they was doing something slick, or thought they was hurting me in a certain way, or thought they was taking something from me, and that very thing they took from me was a blessing. Good riddance, because I didn't have to deal with that drama anymore. But what they thought was bad, God turned that thing around and made it something good, made it something positive in my life. So understand that God will allow you to conquer things even when other people think that they're getting over on you. God will give you a conquering spirit, and he'll make sure that you come out better on the other side. And you guys, my final thought is, storms are going to come, and there's nothing you can do about it. But stay prayed up, try to establish a good support system, and do your best to make the best decisions that you can. And always remember, the storm has an end. Trouble don't last always. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. So just know that God is on your side, and that you don't have to go through things alone. Get you a good support system. Get you some people that, and I was laying in the bed last night and this came to me, y'all. And it's just the thoughts that come to me sometimes, it just scare me sometimes. But this thought came to me, that if you just needed to cry your eyes out, who could you call and just say, hey, I just want to come over your house and cry? I don't know anybody that will just let me cry. But sometimes you just need to get it out without somebody's advice, without somebody's judgment, without somebody trying to fix things for you. And I heard God say, I'm going to create that for you. There's going to be a person that's going to be your person, that you're going to be comfortable with being able to do that, and they're going to know how to handle the situation. And I believe God, and I'm trusting God for that. Because there are so many things in life we have to go through, and sometimes we bottle up all of that emotion, we bottle up all of that pain, we bottle up all of that energy that the things in our lives take us through. It takes a lot of energy to get through a storm. It takes a lot of energy to push through to the other side. And sometimes we just don't have a release. So just understand, you guys, God is on your side. And sometimes you have to go through things in order to break the cycle in your family. You know, I had to go through some things so my children won't have to go through some things. I've gone through some things, and I've spoken over my children and said, you will never have to deal with this in Jesus' name. I speak over them, and I speak over them that generational curse that got me into this mess, this generational curse that made me more susceptible to this type of situation, you will not have to go through it. I refuse to allow you to go through it in Jesus' name. You have to go through some things just so your children don't have to go through it, so that you can learn from it, so that you can learn how to pray over your children, that you can learn how to guide them, so they won't have to fall in the same potholes you fell into, so you can be a better mother. You know, some things you go through because you need to get your act together. You know, sometimes God lets you go through things so that when you come out on the other side, you're a better mother for it. You're a better sister for it. Or you're a better friend. So don't despise the storms, you guys, because they're going to come. All you can do is be prayed up and ask God to help you go through it the best way that you can, and learn from the situation, learn from your storm, and remember to be grateful for everything, and remember to give God all the glory and all the praise, for He's our helper. He's the one that's fighting for us. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I think I won't be able to talk about it next Thursday. They're trying to do a Christmas party at my job, and obviously they want me to be there. So I will announce if I'm not going to talk about it Thursdays next week. And if I don't do it next week, I'll see y'all the week after that. I love you guys. Please stay safe. This flu and this COVID is on the rise. So please, please, please take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. Sanitize. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. I love you guys. Y'all take care. And y'all have a great night. Bye-bye.